goddamn get it on, will ya? Woo. When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories, we running through.
Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be going over the M57 common problems, rough running and misfires on your M57 engine. Now, a lot of you always message me every day with a lot of problems with your M57. There's also a lot of no crank, no start issues. This will relate for them as well. We will be doing another video on a no crank, no start videos regarding the M57 engine. This is a common engine around the UK and EU, and there is a lot of issues regarding this engine, and that's purely because of a lot of neglect and people not taking care of these engines the way they should be. So let's get on to the video and let me show you all the things that will cause your rough running symptoms, misfires, and obviously all your faults on your M57 engine. Okay guys, so it's the M57 common problems, rough running and misfire codes. So the first one on these which like to cause a misfire, as many of you guys don't know, will be the injectors. As you would have seen in my reliability video, I have told you if you remap these will cause a misfire most definitely, because your car is not running correctly, because they probably destroyed one of the injectors. The next one that can cause misfire codes is these plugs right here. A lot of people take off their manifold. A lot of these wires, as you see here, they're very brittle when they're stretched out, can break on the injector rail itself. And as you see, you've got the pressure sensors, you've got one here and you've got one over the back of the manifold as well, which many of you guys, if you've ever removed the manifold, you'll know. These, a lot of the time people don't put them back on, which end up causing your fuel rail not to run properly and to cause misfires on the car itself. Another one on these is the vacuum lines. The vacuum lines can cause a lot of misfires, because as you see, you've got your canisters, and these canisters, as you see, you cycle the vacuum backwards and forwards, back to the turbo and back to the engine, and it goes back to the turbo. These canisters are there to produce the vacuum needed to keep the diesel running. Now, a lot of these end up getting frayed, these vacuum lines, which you're going to be seeing me do on another video. I'm going to be replacing all the vacuum lines. Even though it's low mileage, it's something I want done. So we're going to be replacing all the vacuum lines on this car, but these can become damaged and brittle and crack, and a lot of you will end up with misfire codes that you don't know how to get to. A lot of the time it's because of these, especially on the 535 diesel. You have a lot of them under the manifold and you need to be able to get to them. These cause a lot of the rough running when not correct. And as many of you guys would have seen as well, a lot of people, when they lift up the manifolds on these cars, they end up trapping the vacuum lines underneath the manifold as well. It's a common issue, and I've seen it many times on the diesel where people haven't even realised they're getting away because there's so many vacuum lines for the 535 diesel. The next one that can cause misfire and rough running on these cars is the EGR valve. Now, the EGR valve, if you have still got the original EGR, the piston inside can end up sticking, which can cause your car to run and rock very badly when they're sticking, especially on a cold start, and you'll notice that you're not getting the full boost. You also notice the car is feeling very sluggish, and it's based on the EGR. It's where it's got all gunked up from a carbon build-up, and your EGR itself is not functioning correctly. Now, on the old ones, they don't throw a light because they're not engine management controlled, but on the newer ones, which is on the E60s, they are engine management controlled. But on the older ones, if your piston starts going up, the only way you would know if it's the EGR causing it is the best way is to pull the vacuum line, and that stops the EGR actually functioning. Now, when you actually pull that vacuum line, if the EGR stops functioning and your car comes back to normal, then you know it's an EGR fault itself. And the next one on these guys is the turbo itself. Now, the turbo down there has got wastegates on it, as many of you guys have got vacuum lines. Now, if your wastegate is sticking, where the vacuum lines actually come undone, or the vacuum lines perished, the wastegate's going to be sticking, i.e. you're either going to be losing boost or you're not going to be getting no boost at all. So as you guys know, the wastegate on the turbos opens and shuts all the time while driving. Now, a lot of you can end up with them getting stuck, and this happens on the 535 diesel a lot, where the vacuum lines end up coming detached, and then you end up with rough running on the car and you're losing all boost as well. Now, that's purely because your wastegates are not functioning correctly, because either the vacuum line's gone or the wastegate or the turbo's on its way out. Now, a lot of that again is based on remaps where, you know, they're up the boost, so the turbo's being used a lot more than it would from factory. Therefore, the wastegates are failing, and I do recommend getting that sorted, because that could be a killer for your actual engine if the turbo lets go. Now, as many of you guys know, on the new E60s, you do have the shudder valve, which will kill the engine in case of any kind of turbo failure or anything like that, because as you guys know, if it's automatic, the engine will just rev itself and dump the oil until it kills the engine. But on these old ones, they don't have a shudder valve, so there's nothing to actually kill the engine. You have to kill it yourself, or the engine will just grenade. But these units are pretty reliable, so that shouldn't happen. Another one which can cause rough running on these engines is the glow plugs. Now, you would have seen in my reliability video when I told you about your glow plugs on the pre-2005s, these will cause rough running, and that's because when you go to start your car from cold, you will notice that the car's running rough because the glow plugs ain't working. You'll also notice smoke coming out of exhaust, that's because that's unburnt fuel that's getting dumped into the combustion chamber, and that the glow plugs ain't heating up to actually burn it off. If your glow plugs ain't working, then as many of you guys know, I said to you, the glow plug module sits in the ECU box here, connected to a live wire. It sits in the ECU box. You also have a 100 amp fuse, which is in the fuse box as well located. You would have to drop your fuse box itself to actually find the 100 amp fuse, but it is there, which controls the whole 6 glow plugs and the power going to the glow plug module itself. Now, if you are getting rough running, it will be thanks to your glow plugs from cold. I do suggest changing it and getting it scanned, making sure it is your glow plugs, and replacing necessary components to get your diesel back running and get it back running to tip-top efficiency as quickly as possible. Now, the next one on these, which a lot of people ain't aware of, is when they remove the manifold on these cars, this live cable right here, which a lot of people don't even know, has to be removed to get access to the manifold, and this is the same for the E60. A lot of people don't actually put this live wire actually back. Then they come to me saying their car's getting no crank, no start, and this is a common problem. Why? Because they haven't put this positive cable back correctly the way it should be, or they put the bolt here the other way round. Now, if you put that the other way round, it's not going to start because it needs to make contact completely to the chassis of the car, and because as you guys know, this runs to the starter motor itself and runs to the battery area, so this must be making contact. So if it's not, that's why your car ain't going to no crank, no start. Now, the next one. Now, a lot of you always come to me all the time saying you're hearing a rattling sound from your engine. Now, if you're hearing a rattling sound, it could either be one or two things. It's either your swirl flaps are falling into your combustion chamber, which a lot of you already know. Some of you get lucky where the screws are dropped out your swirl flaps, dropping into your combustion chamber, and you got very lucky and avoided expensive engine damage because you caught it just in time. Or it could be your timing chain. Now, if it's the timing chain, as many of you guys know, it's a common failure, especially if you remap it, and I've known many of the M57s to have timing chain problems because of idiots who go and remap it. Your timing chain will start rattling and it will need to be sorted. Now, the timing chains, I've known quite a few people to have them fail, and I know there's a lot of people that have had them fail, and it is a big expensive job, especially on these. And a lot of people, again, don't know how to do it because they're not even used to these actually going wrong. So when you take a timing chain job to a garage and ask them to do the timing chain, they look at you like you're either messed up in the head because they've never heard of it in their life. Now, if the timing chain's gone, my best advice is the whole engine's going to be ripped down, therefore have the injector refurbished at the same time, because it could be a number of things that's caused your engine to fail and caused your timing chain to fail. Therefore, I would recommend everything that comes off be replaced and be like new before it goes back onto the engine. So if you take the manifold off, which will have to come off, the valve cover, replace the valve cover, do all the vacuum lines at the same time to stop you having any of the rough running and misfire codes as well, and also do the glow plugs while you're at it and the glow plug module if you're underneath the car at the same time. The next one that will cause rough running and misfire codes is if you've got a 2001 to 2003 3-litre diesel, you'll have the fuel filter here, which again I've told you the reliability, and you've got a little sensor on there. When that goes bad, that will cause a lot of your misfires and even your car not to start if that sensor goes bad. And if many of you guys don't believe me, if you've got it on your car, go in and plug it and see if your car will start. That is in line to the fuel filter. They've got a lot of sensors that mix backwards and forwards to know what one's doing what, and that one right there is what sends the fuel back to the fuel tank and back to the engine as well. That's why you've got two different lines in and out. So next one is your inline fuel pump, which will be under the passenger side, running along to the back of the back fuel tank, which to the scavenger pump. You've got the scavenger, inline and high pressure fuel pump. The inline pump likes to fail, and you'll know that you hear like a buzzing sound when you first start your car. If that gets faint and fainter, or it starts fainting in and out, it means your pump's about to fail. Do not drive the car, because when you're going uphill or going downhill, the car will lose power because the fuel's not sitting in line, so it can't, the fan inside, which is the propellers, when it's failing, and it can't push the fuel to the high pressure fuel pump. So my best advice is to get that changed if you hear any kind of whirring or buzzing sound. It's a common problem. I've had it even done to me. I've had it on the way back, and I got very lucky when I was on the back way from a 400-mile trip. The inline fuel pump decided to fail. Now the majority of them failing is because of people running the fuel very low and running off the scavenger pump and then getting air inside it and then destroying the pump because they overheat, because they can't be lubricated inside properly. Okay guys, so there you have it. I've just gone over the common problems, rough running and misfire codes on your BMW M57. So I hope this is going to clear up and help a lot of you guys with the problems with your M57 engine, because I know a lot of you are coming to me saying your car's getting no crank, no start. Another thing I would check is your DME, because if you're in a country where you get a lot of rain or a lot of sun, your DME could have been burnt out as well, especially if you're on the left hand side of the road and your DME is on the right side. You could have got water damage DME, so I would go and check that as well, because you probably will need a new DME, and it is common and it is known that the DMEs do go even on these, so therefore I'd be looking at that as well. But I hope this clears up a lot of your actual issues, and if you are having issues and you've got an E39, E46 or E53, I will be doing a no crank, no start on these cars to show you what actually goes bad and what you was going to need to change and what will cause your no crank, no start as well on the actual chassis itself, which also relates for the engine. So if your car ain't starting, I will be showing you that also. So thank you very much for watching this. BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.